I bought a $15 million office building for $0 down. The bank said no, so I used this secret clause. After the economic slump hit, the commercial real estate market seized up. Everyone was terrified of empty office space. This fear created the perfect buying environment for those who knew how to spot a desperate seller. I found the Pinnacle Tower, a beautiful Class A 12-story office building listed for $15 million. It was owned by a small local real estate developer named David, who had built the tower 10 years earlier and was tremendously proud of it. But David had a problem. The building was only 60% occupied, and his massive $10 million mortgage was coming due in 6 months. His bank, National Trust, was refusing to extend or refinance the loan, especially given the low occupancy rate. David was facing imminent foreclosure, which would wipe out his entire life's work. This is the key insight. David wasn't trying to sell the building to make money, he was selling it to avoid bankruptcy and a massive credit hit. He was desperate. I looked at the numbers. The property was cash flowing just enough to cover the mortgage interest, but that 60% occupancy rate scared away every traditional investor. Everyone wanted a deep discount, a fire sale price of $10 million cash, which still wouldn't save David's equity. I approached David with an offer that sounded like I was doing him a huge favor, but was designed to cost me $0 out of pocket. My offer, I would pay him his full asking price of $15 million, but I would use a strategy called debt assumption. Here's how debt assumption works. Instead of me getting a new loan to pay off David's existing $10 million mortgage, I would simply take over his existing loan, terms and all. David's reaction was hesitant but intrigued. "You mean you'll take over my $10 million liability? But where does the other $5 million for the sale price come from?" I explained the magic of the Seller Carryback Note. "David, you loan me the remaining $5 million, equity, which I will pay you back over the next 10 years at a low interest rate. You get monthly income, you save your credit, and you avoid the tax hit of a foreclosure." I essentially structured the deal so that the bank's debt and David's debt covered 100% of the purchase price, $0 cash down. David signed the purchase agreement immediately. He was saved. But my real battle was just beginning. The bank had to approve the debt assumption, and the vice president of National Trust, Mr. Sterling, a ruthless corporate shark, vetoed the deal instantly. Mr. Sterling called my lawyer and said, "We are not letting that loan go to some inexperienced kid. We want our money back or we will foreclose." He was ready to seize the $15 million building and wipe out David. How did I use a little-known 2-sentence clause buried deep within the 10-year-old original mortgage agreement, a clause called the death, divorce, or transfer exception, to legally force the bank's hand and compel them to approve the debt assumption?
Mr. Sterling, the VP of National Trust, was a roadblock. His bank wanted the building, not a new borrower. They calculated that if they foreclosed, they could buy the building at auction cheap, wait out the market slump, and flip it for a $5 million profit later. They saw David's desperation as their payday. My lawyer, a sharp real estate veteran named Elena, told me, "Sterling is betting on the due-on-sale clause. The moment David transfers ownership to you, the bank has the legal right to demand the full $10 million mortgage immediately. Since you don't have $10 million cash, they foreclose." This was the biggest hurdle. I needed a way to transfer the property without triggering the due-on-sale clause. Elena and I spent 2 days poring over the 300-page original mortgage document, a dusty contract signed a decade ago when the market was booming and banks were sloppy. Then Elena found it. Buried deep within the covenants and agreements section was a 2-sentence clause known in the legal world as the Garn-St Germain Exception, but often disguised in commercial contracts as the permitted transfer clause. The clause basically stated that the bank must allow the transfer of the property and the debt under specific non-sale circumstances, such as a transfer to an immediate family member, a trust, or a transfer to a bona fide operating company owned by a responsible party, provided the original seller retains a small financial interest. Elena's eyes lit up. They made a mistake, OP. When they wrote this loan 10 years ago, they copied an old boilerplate contract that allows us to bypass the due on sale clause if the transfer is made to a new entity where David remains a beneficial interest holder. They forgot to remove it. The plan was surgical. David and I would form a new limited liability company, NewCo. David would legally transfer ownership of the building into NewCo. This was the permitted transfer that the bank had to allow. David would retain a symbolic 0.5% equity stake in NewCo, satisfying the beneficial interest holder requirement, which shielded the transfer from the due on sale clause. Then, I would immediately buy David's 99.5% stake in NewCo via the $5 million Seller Carryback Note. When we presented the new structure to Mr. Sterling, he was apoplectic. His lawyer confirmed the loophole. The bank had no choice but to approve the debt assumption. They were legally obligated to allow me, the new principal owner of NewCo, to take over the existing $10 million mortgage. I had just bought a $15 million building for $0 cash down using the bank's own contract against them. But the deal wasn't over. The building was only 60% full. The existing tenants were paying below market rent, and the building had a reputation for poor management. I had the building, but I was bleeding money monthly. My 60-day cash reserve was quickly depleting. The existing tenants had ironclad long-term leases at ridiculously low rates. I couldn't raise their rent for years, but I needed to increase the building's cash flow immediately to satisfy the bank. How did I use a creative legal strategy focusing on uncommon area fees and a tenant upgrade swap to instantly boost the property's net operating income by over 20% without violating a single existing lease agreement?
I had secured the $15 million building for $0 down, but the market was still soft and my hands were tied by long-term below-market leases. If I couldn't boost the net operating income, NOI, immediately, I'd default on the massive mortgage. I gathered the property management team, who were used to the old lazy ways of David. They said, OP, we can't raise the base rent for 5 years. We're stuck. I introduced the concept of the uncommon area fee audit. Every commercial lease has a common area maintenance fee, covering things like utilities, cleaning, and security. But I noticed that David had been lazy and absorbed many specialized high-cost services into the base rent, things he shouldn't have. Fiber optic internet access. I installed premium fiber internet throughout the building and created a mandatory, non-negotiable technology infrastructure fee for all tenants. This was a valuable new service we charged for, not an increase in the old CAM fee. Premium security upgrade. We installed high-tech biometric security access. This was packaged as a required enhanced security and access fee. Tenants, mostly high-end tech firms, valued security and couldn't argue with it. On-site fitness center. The building had an old, unused gym. We renovated it, hired a part-time trainer, and charged a mandatory wellness amenity fee. These 3 fees alone, focused on services the tenants genuinely needed or desired, instantly added $200,000 per year to the building's NOI without violating the base rent agreements. This was a massive win. Next, I tackled the low 60% occupancy rate. Instead of giving huge discounts to new tenants, which devalues the building, I created the tenant upgrade swap strategy. I targeted the smallest, oldest tenants in the building, the ones paying the lowest rent in the worst space. I offered them this deal. I cannot lower your rent, but if you sign a new, non-cancelable 7-year lease, I will give you a free 10-year, $50,000 office renovation, new carpet, new paint, new lighting, all paid for upfront by me. It was a brilliant psychological move. The tenants felt like they were getting a massive free upgrade, while I locked them into an extra 5 to 7 years of guaranteed cash flow. This instantly stabilized the building's finances and boosted the valuation because lenders love long-term lease commitment. Within 6 months, the NOI was up by 25% and the occupancy rate was at 85%. Mr. Sterling and National Trust stopped calling to threaten foreclosure and started calling to congratulate me. I now owned a stable, high-value asset, but I still had the enormous $10 million mortgage and the $5 million note to David. My goal was to eliminate all debt and achieve true financial freedom. How did I use the newly increased NOI and a technique called the debt equity bridge to force the bank to refinance my loan under punitive terms for them, allowing me to pay off David and extract $3 million in tax-free cash for myself? After boosting the net operating income, or NOI, by 25% and occupancy to 85%, my $15 million building was no longer a distressed asset. It was a gold mine. The bank, National Trust, now saw me as a highly successful client, which gave me maximum leverage. I went back to Mr. Sterling, the VP who had tried to foreclose on me months earlier. I wasn't asking for a simple refinance. I was executing the debt equity bridge strategy. This strategy relies on the core valuation principle in commercial real estate. Value equals NOI divided by cap rate. Since I had increased the NOI from $600K to $750K, the building's new market value at a 5% cap rate was now $15 million. I wanted a new loan based on this new higher value. I demanded a new $12 million mortgage from National Trust. That number was crucial. Old debt, $10 million mortgage, bank's portion. Seller note, $5 million, David's portion, now reduced to $4.5 million after 2 years of payments. My equity, $0, initial cash down. I told Mr. Sterling, "You will issue me a new $12 million loan. $4.5 million goes to pay off the remaining seller note to David, fulfilling my contract and making the building debt-free of the seller's claim. The remaining $3 million is cash out, tax-free, straight into my pocket." Sterling protested, "That's a massive loan-to-value ratio." I didn't blink. I presented him with 2 options. Give me the $12 million loan, keep me as a client, and lock me into a new 10-year repayment schedule. Or refuse the loan. I would take the newly optimized building and refinance with a competing bank who would happily give me the $12 million loan, and National Trust would lose a valuable client and a lucrative interest stream. Sterling, knowing I was serious, conceded. He issued the $12 million check. I wired $4.5 million to David, who was officially retired and financially free. I paid back all my legal fees, and the remaining $3 million went into my personal account, pure, tax-free cash from a deal I started with $0 out of pocket. I still owed the bank $12 million, but the building's robust cash flow easily covered the payments. I had successfully used their capital to pay off the seller and put millions into my own pocket. This entire deal proves that in high-stakes finance, you don't need cash, you need leverage and creative thinking. Remember these 2 core lessons from the commercial real estate game. Debt is a tool, not a trap. Use debt assumption and seller carryback to acquire assets with $0 down. If the cash flow supports the debt, you are using the bank's money to make yourself rich. Maximize the NOI. In commercial real estate, value is created, not found. You can increase the value of a property by increasing its income via legal fees like uncommon area charges far faster than market appreciation can. Always focus on the NOI. Don't be afraid to take on the banking giants. If you know the contracts better than their own VPs, you will always win.